Hey everybody, it's Simon from Northeast Christian Apologetics. I'm coming at you with another video today, and today I just want to talk about Pascal's wager. This is an argument for the existence of God that my brother has talked to me about a little bit, asking questions on it, and I want to talk about a different version of it. It's kind of a different perspective on Pascal's wager than what most people understand about it. A lot of people think that Pascal's wager is just a flat-out argument for the existence of God. I don't really interpret it that way, and I've written on this on the website, and the blog posts that are talking about this is the problem of death's door. So I'm just going to be touching on that a little bit here. But for those of you who don't know what Pascal's wager is, it's basically an argument from Blaise Pascal. It's from his Pensées, and it kind of goes like this. When you come into this world, you have to wager on something. And what that wager has to deal with is the existence of God and the truth of Christianity versus it's not truth. This argument is usually dealing with the idea that there's Christianity on one hand and then atheism on the other. And if you wager that God exists, then it's all about pros and cons, or utility, or threats. If you wager that God exists and you believe in Christianity and Christianity is true, then what have you lost if you're wrong? If it turns out that Christianity isn't true, then you haven't lost much. You've lost possibly some carnal pleasures and some maybe sleeping in on Sunday, or a lot of people talk about that kind of stuff, that you lose aspects of what other non-Christians get to enjoy versus what you don't. But if Christianity is true, what do you gain? You gain eternal bliss, you gain heaven, you gain a relationship with God. You get Jesus saying, "Well done, good and faithful servant, come into your master's house," and things like that. But if you wager that atheism is true, what have you gained? You've gained some temporary pleasures, some of the things that I just talked about with regard to what you would lose if you're a Christian. But what have you lost? You've lost eternal bliss when you die. But what have you also gained? And you've gained eternal torment, eternal separation from God, eternal separation from the being that is the source of goodness and truth and love and things like that. So you gain eternal suffering. Doesn't seem like a good idea to bet that way. When you have so much to gain on one hand and so much to lose on the other hand, it doesn't make sense to even wager that atheism is true or wager in this direction. So that's what the argument is essentially saying, that if it's all about wagering, which side is true. Now, and therefore the betting person, the smart bet would be to believe that God is true and Christianity is true. Now, a lot of people will argue that this is a bad argument from a few different positions. One of them is that this doesn't instill in us genuine belief, just fake belief, that you just give lip service to God. After all, Romans 10:9 says, confess with your mouth that Jesus Christ is Lord and believe in your heart that God raised him from the dead. And if you can't believe in your heart, then God knows whether or not you can believe in your heart. Thus, you're not living authentically. Now, there's a couple ways to kind of combat that criticism in the realm of, like, for some people, this argument can provide sufficient warrant for belief in the Christian God, and that means that it's good for them. But not everyone is like that. Not everyone can. Blaise Pascal actually said, when he presented this argument, that you basically fake it till you make it, that you just go through the motions until you finally do believe. And in one instance, from the idea that from just Pascal's wager alone, you could never get to, some people would never get to belief, but that's not really the point of it. It's the point of living the life, seeing the fruits of the Spirit. If Christianity is true, then you will see some changes in your life. You'll start to recognize the presence of God and things of that nature. So the fake it till you make it idea isn't dealing with just the idea of Blaise Pascal. It's actually living the life and doing the spiritual exercises of Christianity, like prayer, fellowship with other believers, reading the Bible, having communion with God and other believers, and worshiping Him, and things of that nature. And then you'll see some spiritual fruit, and then belief in God will naturally manifest. But if it's not true, then those things may or may not exhibit belief in you. So to me, the whole Pascal's wager doesn't work because God knows that you're faking it, doesn't really seem to have much strength to me. I don't know why people actually believe that that's a relevant defeater of Pascal's wager, but for some people it is. But there's also another argument against Pascal's wager in the form of which God. So it's not really an argument for atheism versus Christianity. It could work just as well for atheism versus Islam, or atheism versus some other religion that has the kind of threats that Christianity has. So what do you do about that? And that's where my perspective of the argument kind of comes in, where I think that Pascal's wager isn't really an argument to get someone to believe. It's an argument to show that it's prudentially warranted to investigate these matters, that it's a prudent thing to do, that it's not the right idea to go through life not considering these very important issues. Because what it boils down to is that nobody knows what happens after you die. There are a lot of ideas and a lot of theories. Some people think that you go to heaven. Some people think that you go to hell. Some people think that you go to Tarsus. Or Tartarus. Some people think that you just die and stop existing, and then your body decomposes and stuff like that, But the fact of the matter is, nobody actually knows. So what should guide our investigation? To me, it seems like the prudent thing to do would be to investigate any worldview in which the consequences of you dying or passing through the door of death is the scariest. The thing that you would like to avoid the most. And from my perspective, I think that the thing that I would like to avoid the most is eternal conscious torment. Because when you compare eternal conscious torment to things like temporary conscious torment seems to be less scary to me because it's temporary. It doesn't go on forever. And eternal conscious torment is scarier to me than annihilation, or the idea of us ceasing to exist, because I'm consciously being tormented forever, and when I cease to exist, I have no consciousness of it, so there's nothing to be afraid of. For me, from my perspective, I don't think that annihilationism is scary at all. So when somebody is arguing against Pascal's wager and says, so which God is it? Or which religion is it? Is it Christianity or Islam? What I typically respond with is yeah, that is the real question. The real question isn't whether or not atheism is true versus Christianity versus Islam. Atheism, to me, as long as it doesn't have any kind of eternal conscious torment associated with it, isn't even on the table for discussion. It's not something that's relevant to the conversation because it's not a big enough threat. So what ends up being the case is that the prudent thing to do, the right thing to do, if you're trying to avoid something that's horrible, would be to investigate whether or not Christianity is true or is Islam true. And then if you discover that one of them isn't true and you're pretty confident in the other one, or if you've come to a belief that neither one of them is true, then you kind of look into atheism. But from my perspective, I think that eternal conscious torment is such an enormous threat that you would have to have some extremely strong evidence to reject it. Extremely strong. To me, you would need to have extraordinary evidence, so to speak, to not believe that Christianity or Islam is the worldview that you should be believing in. So that's basically where I stand on it with Pascal's wager. Again, like I said, Pascal's wager, I think, is an argument that shows that it's prudentially warranted to investigate these matters. And I don't think that saying that, God knows that you're faking it is a good criticism, because, like, you need to be striving to investigate these matters, and if you think that one of them is better than the other, then you should be pursuing it, even if you're not convinced in your heart of hearts. You know, like, you can believe things consciously and then have difficulty believing it subconsciously. You can confess to something and then work towards getting a heartfelt belief in the matter. Trust me, I know from the heart standpoint, a lot of Christians know what it's like to feel that God is distant and to have doubts, and to go through times in which they find it hard to believe in their heart that Christianity is true, but nevertheless they still go through the motions. And we go through spiritual droughts, you know, and I talked about this in one of my very first videos. You know, that's the point of apologetics, is that even when we feel spiritually drained, we don't feel that God is there, we still have enough head knowledge to be able to confess with our mouth that Jesus is Lord, even though it can be hard to believe sometimes in our heart that God raised him from the dead, or that God exists, things of that nature. So you can get through those times of spiritual drought. So that's why I don't think that the whole that criticism is very strong. I don't know why that's a good one for some people. And again, like the many gods objection, where is it the God of Christianity? Is it the God of Islam? Another thing that I want to note is that when you're talking about other religions dealing with eternal conscious torment, the number of religions that have eternal conscious torment are actually pretty small. It's basically just Christianity and Islam. There are forms of Wicca that have a punishment of eternal conscious torment, but that eternal conscious torment of that variety of Wicca is the Christian hell. So all you have to do to avoid it is be a Christian, you know. So like that one I don't think counts. So like the whole criticism is the point. That criticism is the point. Like it's a good idea to start investigating these matters, and what you do is you take atheism and you put it on the side, because it's not important for this discussion at this time. Okay, so that's what I have to say on that matter. Let me know what you think. Please check out the website at www.nechristianapologetics.com, and really appreciate you guys listening. All right, I'll talk to you later. See you next time.